What's up guys, it's Martin. Welcome to Peak Your Mind. Today I'm going to share with you my 5 favorite insights from the book Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. And if you're not familiar with this book is from the same author that wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and it's essentially her insights and her practices and her advice on how do you take on what you love most, conquer the things that get in your way, and live more creatively and mindfully and passionately. And even if you don't think you're a creative person, this book is really about how do you live a life that's driven more by curiosity than fear. So I'm excited to share with you, and let's kick things off with the first tip. So the first big lesson that I got from this book is that everything sucks some of the time. And one of the mistakes I notice people make with this, including myself, is thinking that once I get this job, or once I get that job, or once this happens, or once that happens, then it'll be perfect, because I'll be doing what I love and things will just flow and fall into place. But regardless of what you do, there's gonna be parts that are challenging and that challenge you and that push you. So what this is about is understanding, what are you passionate enough about? What do you love enough to deal with those tougher aspects or those more frustrating parts of it, where that scale of toughness versus how much you love it is always tipped in your favor. And just to give you some examples, I know a lot of people who, want to have their own business and want to be their own boss. Are you willing to put in the 80 hours a week that it takes to do that? Or if you want to be a performer and you want to tour, are you willing to be on the road for a lot of the time and be away from the people you love and your family? Or if you're interested in acting, are you willing to take the rejection and the uncertainty that comes with it? And the beauty of this insight is that once you understand that, all of a sudden you get this big picture of you and you're not blindsided by the tougher aspects of what you want to do. You're not disillusioned by, oh, when I do this, everything will be perfect. And now you know what you're getting yourself into because you're less likely to quit when you do hit those challenging aspects of it. So that's what I really love about this tip. On to tip number 2. The next big insight is being fearless versus being courageous. And she prompts the reader and she asks, do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that lie within you? And when it comes to this, I used to think fear was the enemy. It's not about being fearless, but being courageous. In any creative endeavor, if it's something you're putting out to the world, it takes courage to come up against the rejection or the criticism or even the self-doubt that gets in the way of those things. So instead of being discouraged by this elusive, unattainable idea of being fearless, she reminds us that it takes courage to live a creative life. It takes courage to take an idea and make it real in the face of criticism and rejection and self-doubt. And how you get to that place is through little acts of courage, baby steps. And mustering up that courage comes from allowing your desire to be greater than your fear. There's a great quote that encompasses this really well, and it just says, you gotta want it more than you're afraid of it. So that's tip number 2, that's what I loved about it. On to tip number 3. The third big takeaway from this book is arguing for your limitations. One of the things that frustrates me the most is how much people defend and argue for their limitations. I'm a firm believer that you're capable of whatever you believe you're capable of, and that your ability and your potential stretches or shrinks to the capacity of your belief. And what she says in this book is that if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And last weekend, we had a birthday in the family. And so the night before, it was at my mom's house and we were preparing all the decorations and stuff, and I was sitting outside with a family friend who's a singer, and her aunt was there too, and we were talking music and stuff, and this topic of this new song that she had put up on YouTube or something just come out. And her aunt was like, I know I'm your aunt, but this song is so good, you're so talented, you have such an incredible voice. She goes, no, that song sucks, I'm not that good, blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting because it kind of mirrored back stuff that I used to do. And I would probably say the same exact thing about older videos that I've created or older songs that I've done. But what the author brings to light is that it's such a strange thing to argue. Because essentially what you're saying is, I know you think I'm great, I know you believe in me, but you've got terrible judgment. And it's a defense mechanism. But the more you argue for your limitations, the more you're conditioning that disbelief into your subconscious mind and shrinking your self-image and your potential and your ability. So a really simple fix for this is shifting that dialogue. And instead of saying, no, I suck, I'm terrible, I'm this, I'm that, saying thank you, I appreciate that. And in your mind, you could do a little mental note, you could say I want to continue to get better. But changing that dialogue goes a long way. The fourth big lesson from this book is creative entitlement. And that doesn't mean that the world owes you anything. All it means is that you'll never create anything interesting out of your life if you don't feel entitled to at least try. And it's true, you don't need anyone's permission to be creative and to live a creative life. And often people will wait for someone to notice them or their talent or their specialness or tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you got it. But this essentially puts your purpose and your gifts in the hands of someone else, and waiting for someone to come along and tell you you're good enough is a huge waste of time. You don't need validation. That validation doesn't define you. You define you. And if you're creating and working on your craft every day, then you're a creator. And I love the perspective and the belief system that she offers in this book, which is simply, if you exist, that is your creative entitlement. And if you look at kids, all kids are creative. They play, they create, they paint, they draw, they build, but sometimes that creative drive that we're all born with is discouraged. And maybe you have a memory where you created something and you were excited to share it, and someone criticized it or knocked it down or shot it down, and you're like, man, I'm never doing that again. I guess I'm just not talented enough or, good enough or creative enough at this. And kind of along those lines, I remember being in middle school and I just loved to sing. I thought it was so fun. And I was downstairs like singing this song, whatever my favorite song was at the time. And one of my family members yells out and says, "Man, you really need lessons." And I was like, ouch, ugh, you got me. And it hurt, and maybe it was true. Maybe I was just terrible and really annoying. But I can either take that and use that as an excuse to say, well, I'm not good enough, so I might as well not even try. Or I can determine my own path and decide, dude, who cares? Like, I'm gonna create, I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna do whatever I wanna do, regardless of whether anyone else gives me the validation. I create it for myself. And so that's the attitude that I love, and that's what I really got from this part of the book. The fifth big insight that I got from this book is that perfectionism is a corrosive waste of time. And as a recovering perfectionist, this really resonated with me, because perfectionism is this idea that if you behave perfectly or act perfectly or create something perfect, then it's immune to criticism or judgment. And so she brings that unattainable, elusive standard of perfection down to earth by saying, don't measure your self-worth by your successes or your failures, but tie it to how dedicated you are to your craft, something that's under your control. And when it comes to this, people usually say, well, just like don't care what people think. And that's something that she offers in the book of like, when you're 40s and your 50s and your 60s, when you hit those ages, like you just stop caring, so why wait? And I think in order to get there, it's not about not caring, but it's about caring more about what's important to you and what you want to do and what you want to create than what other people think. When you can tip that scale and when you can say, I care more about this than this, and you let go of the need to be perfect, that's when that perfectionism starts to fade away. So that's the fifth nugget of wisdom. That's the fifth insight that I got from this book. If you like this video, like it and share it with someone you know. And if you're new to Peak Your Mind and you want to continue to grow and improve yourself and be your best, those are the kind of videos that I make, so subscribe for more videos like this. I love you guys. Make today amazing, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.